I've been a member since I'm 14 years old. So that's only just maybe 10 years. And now actually I celebrate my Golden Jubilee in April. I'll be here 50 years as a member of St. Paul's. And I've known Keith all 24. I just love to listen to him when he talks to people that come in for help. I like to eavesdrop on his conversation because he is so open and honest with them. And the last thing he says is he tells them the salvation story. And he says, because I want you to know this so that you can never say, no one ever told me. It's just been such a pleasure working with Keith and knowing him and knowing Patty too. I'm going to miss him. I'm going to miss Patty. But I know God has good things in store for us. And we can only put our trust and faith in God. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Patty.
As many of you know, I've had the privilege of working with Keith now directly on staff for about 6 years. What many of you don't know is that I've known Keith since he came here. As a matter of fact, I was privileged to preach at Keith's installation service 24 years ago and was part of conspiring to get the search committee to hear him before he ever came to the church. So have long known and appreciated and valued both Keith and Patty and have loved having them here at the church. If you're going to imitate Keith, you got to have a messy desk, a very messy desk. Some of you don't know this story, but at one point Keith was on vacation and I used his desk. Well, I couldn't function, and this was at the old church, couldn't function in his office, so I had to clear off his desk, put it in piles, put them down on the floor, and then I could work at his desk because I didn't have an office at the old church. Only to realize the day that he was to come back, I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, realized Keith would be at his office first thing, and I had not put his piles back. So I got up, drove to the church at 4 o'clock in the morning, spread his books all over his desk, made messy piles, and then went home, went back to bed, and then got up and came in the morning. More seriously, what you know is that I have great respect and admiration for Keith. Most of that comes from his servant heart. Both he and Patty, I think, are two of the most competent people that I've ever met who draw very, very little attention to themselves. We joke sometime about the first Sunday that we were here at this church, but I'll never forget pulling in the parking lot and Keith's car being parked at the far corner, furthest from the door in the parking lot. And for me, that's representative of the way that he and Patty have served this church for 24 years. Constantly thinking about others, constantly pouring their hearts out, constantly trying not to draw attention to themselves. We all sure hate to see them go, but they've sure given us a great example of what it means to be a man and woman after God's own heart. Pray that God would bless them mightily at Great Valley and know that their lives and their example will be treasured and cherished here forever, and look forward to all the times that we'll get to have them come back and visit, be together, and share old memories. So Keith and Patty, thank you for all you've done, but even more importantly for who you are and for the incredible example you've set for all of us.
Hi, I'm Sue Martin, and I've been at St. Paul's for 26 years. One of the things that I really, really remember about Keith is when he started the Saturday morning prayer time. It has evolved into something really big. There are some people who are very faithful and come every Saturday, but there are those who come when they have a particular need, and it's just been a really great time. And that's probably one of the things that I remember most.
Enjoyed receiving wisdom from both Keith and Patty and their encouragement along the way, and just really value their friendship. Two quick stories. One just happened recently with Patty. She caused my son to lose a game of Skip-O by stealing a card out of his hand. For more information, you would have to talk to her about that, but it was just a fun memory for our family to have. And I just enjoy her playfulness and just being able to spend time with her and watching her spend time with kids. And the thing I'm going to miss the most about Keith is being able to walk into his office on Monday with any question that I have, and just being able to talk to him.
I'm Jim Banstra. I've been at St. Paul's for about 16 years now. Whenever we go to Presbytery meetings or committee meetings and things, we have a long ways to drive. A couple hours is not uncommon. And I've often done that with Keith. So we have spent a lot of time in our cars talking to each other. In fact, when we go on these trips, I never turn the radio on because we talk the whole time. We talk the whole time there and the whole time coming back. And we've had some pretty interesting discussions. Keith and I agree on the basic things, of course. We do have some minor disagreements on other things, and Keith has a wonderful way of rebutting any ideas that he doesn't agree with of mine. And his technique is, first he restates my position, quite well, by the way, and then there's a but, either implied or explicit, and he says something that pretty much destroys whatever my position is. And he's really good at that. And we often had a great time, laughing, talking, always respectful, always friendly, and really just a great time together. Some of the best times I've had with him.
Okay, well, just talking a little bit about, I've got a timeline of things that happened in the building of St. Paul's here, and it was a very active time in my life, and I'm sure in Keith's life. And I think I became an elder here in December 2004, but in the fall of 2005, Keith asked me if I would be willing to chair a building committee. We met, and the committee met 75 times between 2005 and 2012, when the whole program ended in June. There were 75 meetings. I looked them up, and Keith made 72 of them, or 71 of them, I think. Fantastic attendance record for a man as busy as he was. I think he actually attended more than I did. Congregation in November, in their congregational meeting in 2008, they voted to build on a Sherburne property, and we got the deed to that property in December of that year. And we started the session voted, we had the final plans developed and the cost, and we had a fundraising drive in 2009, and in that process, of course, Keith was very active. We moved in, we were hoping to move in by Christmas of 2010, but we actually moved in for Easter of 2011, and had our last meeting when the pledges were finally all paid up. And in June we had a celebration at our house, or had a steak dinner for the whole crew, and we, at that point, had all pledges in, and we had a $400,000 mortgage, and shortly there, within a year or two, that was paid. So that was the total picture of, Keith was involved heavily in the whole time, very good leader. And I'd like to say just that I've worked with 5 different ministers in my life as an elder in a Presbyterian church. And I got to say, Keith's the best. I've told him this, so it's nothing new to him, but he definitely, he's a modest guy, but he has a fantastic prayer life. And I don't know I've never seen a minister that can preach a sermon without ever looking at a note, like he does. So it's been a great privilege to work with him, be with him, and be ministered by him for the last 23 years for us.
My name's Ken Van Antwerp. I've been at St. Paul's probably since 1986. I was on the search committee that called Keith to the pulpit. One of my strongest relationships with Keith has been our numerous trips to Haiti. I first went to Haiti by myself back in the early 90s, and after that first trip, I made a solemn vow never to return. But at the time I made that solemn vow, I failed to consider the Fink factor. And it's been through his leadership and his inspiration, his servant's heart, his passion for God's kingdom in the world that has taken this church back to Haiti probably 20 times. Oh, what's been most impressive in my relationship with Keith and in our trips to Haiti has been his absolute servant's heart. It hasn't been so much the things that he's said, although they have been rich and meaningful. It's been the life he's led. I've learned more about Christ by watching him and seeing him than I have about what he's told me about Christ. It's been his life and his example, and obviously that's going to be what we'll miss when he's gone.
We're Scott and Anna Stelzer, and we have been going to St. Paul's for the past 17 years. When we moved to come on staff with Summer's Best 2 Weeks, we started going to St. Paul's. And I can remember one of my first interactions with Keith, or one of the first kind of ways that I got to know Keith was by going to the Friday morning men's Bible study. And I remember sitting in Keith's office next to, right after one of those Bible studies in the Grove room. You move over to his office, and we sat down, and I said, Keith, I don't know how much I can, in my kind of ignorance, I said to Keith, hey, I don't know how much I can get out of this Bible study. It's just, there's no one my age. And this is one of the things I really appreciate about Keith Fink is Keith can be very direct and tough on you sometimes, and I've appreciated that so much over the years. He's not been afraid to say hard things, and specifically hard things to me. And so he got up like this, and he said, Scott, you have so much to gain from being involved and in a relationship with men, and he mentioned men like George Foose and Ken Van Antwerp and Dave Glessner and people and Gordon Allen and people that had been there. He said, the kingdom of God is not filled with 22-year-olds, Scott. And what a great rebuke. And I've not only always remembered that has shaped my experience of St. Paul's.
We came like 16 or 17 years ago. We didn't have any friends, and Keith and Patty would invite us over for dinner, and we babysat their girls, Jessica and Julie, and they babysat our kids, Colton and Susie, and then Jessica and Julie babysat our kids. So we all felt like we got to really be a part of their family. We really felt welcomed as a part of their family and have so many fun memories of watching them raise their kids. Keith and Patty are really two people that we go to for advice on how to raise kids, how to deal with difficult issues, how to handle situations that come up in our life. We really, really admire and respect and love Keith and Patty and just have countless memories of laughs and time together.
Not only is Keith tough, but he's tender, and probably the tenderest moment for Anna and myself with Keith was having Keith. He was at all 5 of our children. He was visited soon after they were born, but Keith was there in the room right after Hannah was born, and so he's with us as we said goodbye to our daughter, and that's a significant moment in our story, and one in which Keith I'll never forget. I'm very, very appreciative of Keith being a part of.
My name's Spencer Brocker. I've been privileged to work with Keith and to be at St. Paul's for the last three and a half years. But the neat thing is that I've known Keith for a lot longer than that, for 20-something years, from my time at King's Kids and Crossroads. And I think that is so cool, that Keith was never my pastor. He was never my, St. Paul's was never my church, but yet I knew Keith really well. And I think that is really telling of the impact that Keith has had in our community. He is a man who's led with a servant's heart. And as I put this video together, it was so fun to hear that statement throughout everything. One of the just kind of fun memories I remember was being part of Bible school skits with Keith, both watching them as a kid and then being in them with him when I was older. I remember that Keith always was the goody two-shoes, so he would always end up with a line, whoever the character was. But Dusty, don't you see? The Bible says, and then he was the guy that always brought it home, and I just really enjoyed being in those with Keith. And I remember after our staff meetings, Johanna and I would go back and sit down in my office, and we'd say, well, Johanna, my sense is that ... and we'd fill it in. And we just had so much fun. So thanks, Keith. Thanks, Patty. Thanks for your servants' hearts.
For we loved you so much, we were delighted to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our very lives as well. I think about the Finks, and I think about how their ministry has been one of sharing the good news, the gospel. I am reminded of a number of little clips from sermons of Keith's. Things like the heart of the problem is the problem of the heart. And when you pray, God answers it in one of three ways: yes, wait, or better. Appreciate that the Finks have shared life with people, and indeed with me and my family. As I look back, every significant moment of my life in the last 20 years, the Finks have been present. When I moved to Somerset, they were there. When we got married down in Florida, the Fink family came down for the event. At each of my children's births, the Finks were at the hospital, and when Rebecca was in the hospital in Pittsburgh for a couple weeks, the Finks were there. Every significant part of life, the Finks were present. So I appreciate not only the way that they've shared the good news of the gospel, but the way that they've lived the life with us. So thank you, Keith and Patty.
So if you love someone, you should let them know. The light that you left me will ever glow.